Okay, so for Ixl J K.6, what we're going to be trying to do is figure out a percent of a discount or what percent of an extra upcharge or increase. So unlike last time where we were told what the percentage change was going to be, whether it was an addition or an increase through a tip or a surcharge or tax, or a decrease through a sale or a discount, this time we're going to be given the dollar amounts and asked to determine ourselves what the percentage change is. And it's a very, very simple thing to do. When we're asked to find the percent of change, all we have to do is a simple division problem. We take the amount of the change. So if the price went from $10 to $11, the amount of change is $1. That's just how much of a change it was, up or down. We don't really worry about positive or negative at this point. We just think about the amount of change. And then fraction bar means divided by the original amount. So for example, if the price had been $10 and then the new price was $15, in order to find the percent of a markup or change, the amount of change in this case is 5, because it went from 10 to 15. Sorry about that, that's not what I meant to do. Went from 10 to 15, that's an increase of 5. And then the original amount was 10, so 5 divided by 10 is 0.5, which means this was a 50% increase. So that's a pretty simple example. They're not always that quick and easy, but that's the process right here. Very simple every time. So let's have a look at this first one. During a sale, Jody found guitars on sale for $12. Wow, a guitar for $12. That's crazy. That had previously cost $30. So what percentage discount was that? So again, just as we saw before, what we need to figure out is the amount of the change. So amount of the change. And you remember from our study of slope, I'm going to use the triangle to stand for change. It's just quicker than writing the word out. And then we're going to divide by the original amount. And we're going to do this every time. It's going to become very routine. So the original amount was this $30. That goes on the bottom. That's how much it was originally. But he found them for $12. So that's a pretty big discount. How much of a change is that? Well, from 30 to 12, in order to figure out the difference there, I just subtract, either on a calculator or by hand. And when I do this calculation, either way, I'll get 18. So the amount of change was 18. The original amount was 30. All I have to do is use my calculator to do the division here, because remember, this is the fraction bar means divide. So this literally is asking me to do 18 divided by 30. Now I'm going to get a decimal when I do that. I know that that's not going to go in evenly. 18 divided by 30 is 0.6. And we know that percentages are where we take a number and describe it as a number that's 100 times bigger than it is, just to make everything out of 100. So we do that by multiplying times 100 to get to the percent, and that moves my decimal twice. So this means that the percentage change, or markup in this case, or I should say discount, my bad, the amount of the discount was 60%. So in Ixl, we'll type in 60, and notice it tells you don't forget to include the percent sign. If you don't include the percent sign, it will not give you credit for getting the answer correct. Okay, so now we're talking about sales tax, so that's going to be an increase. So we're going to do, remember, the amount of change divided by the original amount, and that's basically shorthand. Okay, so the original amount was $730. Now the original amount just means what the cost was before we added or subtracted anything. In this case, we're adding sales tax. Well, how much tax was added? If it was $803 with the tax, but $730 without it, what we're going to do is we're just going to subtract. Now, hopefully you'll start to realize these numbers look big. They're not so bad. I mean, 800 over 730 would be just 70, but then there's this additional 3. So the change is $73. I'll double check that on my calculator. 803 minus 730 is 73. So $73 is the amount of change. The original amount was $730. So 73, you might be able to see ahead of time. Maybe you can. Let's pause for a second. Anyone want to predict before we do what percentage change this is? You'll notice something going on with these numbers being the same. That means something special. And 73 divided by 730 is 0.1, which means this is a 10% tax. 0.10 times 100 made into a percent, which means it's expressed as a number that's artificially 100 times bigger. Moves the decimal 2 times, so it's right there. A store purchased soup pots for $50 and sold them for $72. So what is the percentage markup? So they're adding additional money so that they can make some profit. If they sold them for exactly what they paid, they obviously wouldn't make any money and they'd have to close up their store. So the amount of change divided by the original amount. So the amount of change in this case, well, the original amount, let's do that. It started off at 50. That's what they paid. That was the original amount before they added their markup. And now the question is, if it went from 50 to 72, how much of a change is that? How much of a change is it to go from $50 to $72? I'll pause for a second. That's right, it's $22. So if I want to find the percentage change, I'm going to take 22 divided by 50. 22 divided by 50 is 44%. Well, it's 0.44 when I do the math on the calculator. But then to make it a percent, I multiply it times 100, which moves my decimal 2 times to the right. And so this markup is 44%. Again, don't just type 44 as you start, when you move over to IXL. Don't forget you need to include that percentage sign. I know it's a technicality, but they're reinforcing the difference between 44%. 44% isn't 44. 44% is 0.44. And so it makes a big difference. If you don't include this symbol, you're telling the person who's looking at what you've written that you think this number is the number 44. And it's not the number 44, it's the number 0.44. Last one. Cashier checks the price of a water heater that is marked as $120 because it usually rings up at $200. So it must be on sale, and the question we're asked to figure out is how much of a percentage discount is that? Well, the amount of change, again, over the original amount. The original amount was $200. It usually is $200, but it's only $120. So how much of a change is it? If it went from $120, well, it went from $200, I should say, to $120, how much did it change? I'll pause here for a sec. That's right. That is a change of 80. And I'm going to do a quick little shortcut here. When you're faced with a problem like this, I don't want that 800, I just want it to be 80. When you're faced with a problem as simple as 80 over 200, and I'm trying to figure out what that is out of 100. I mean, after all, percentage means out of 100. Well, this is pretty easy, right? What's half of 200? 100. What's half of 80? 40. So that my final answer in this case is 40%. Now, is it true? Could I still have done it as 80 divided by 200? Absolutely. And when I do 80 divided by 200 on my calculator, I get 0.4, which, as we know, is the same thing as 40%. All right, good luck with these. If you get stuck, don't be shy. Ask for help. This is really good skill for you guys to have, not just in math next year and beyond, but also just in life.